off to ocean Shoshone, where the birds and the bees won't know me. Men and wool won't exist no more, and there ain't no gals to keep no score. I'm headed off to ocean Shoshone, where the elk and the owls won't know me, where there ain't no judges to whom I gotta plead, 'cause I can be me in old Shoshone.
Firewatch is a walking simulator developed by Campo Santo and published in partnership with Panic. It was initially released on February 9th, 2016, and came to Gamepass on December 16th, 2021. This was a highly anticipated Gamepass arrival, and we decided to review it to see if it was worth the wait. Walking simulators are notorious for their simplistic gameplay, and Firewatch is no different. Your experience here is almost that of a radio play. You have to make your way around the semi-open world and unravel the narrative that is presented to you. Simplistic gameplay is no excuse for lack of polish, and luckily, Firewatch delivers. Movement feels good and realistically heavy. The world opens up organically, and as you come to grips with how everything connects, you will be able to ditch your map and explore the world with confidence brought on by knowledge. Gameplay is suitably connected to narrative. You learn with Henry, and your friend Delilah provides great context on the park over the radio. There's supply boxes to find, pictures to take, and some small climbing and rope sections. Nothing here is all that complicated, and this is great for allowing you to focus on the meat of the game, the narrative. Gameplay here is perfectly serviceable, but it does not go above and beyond in any real way. This puts a heavy strain on the narrative, as games are usually a balance of multiple factors. Putting all of your eggs in one basket can be risky. Campo Santo seems to have made this choice with confidence, but nonetheless, the gameplay does suffer. Gameplay serves the push for narrative here, but on its own, it could not hold a game, despite being serviceable. This section is short because there isn't a lot of depth here. Firewatch nets itself a 3 out of 5 in the gameplay department. Firewatch is a very pretty indie darling. Forest views and open canyons in the sunset will be a treat for your eyes no matter how much you see them. There's even a camera to capture your favourite views forever. The game has a wonderful simplistic style, very akin to the Telltale games of old. Everything from the player character to your tower home or the leftover beer cans has this rustic cel-shaded art style that keeps it simple and effective. Indie games do have their limits, and the choices made here show that Campo Santo understands that. They use these limits to their advantage to create a game that looks great. The only major graphical issues we came across were those of pop-in and draw distance. Texture pop-in was a common occurrence. The art style is simple enough that it's not majorly distracting, but it can be enough to take you out of the game if you notice it a lot. Then there's the draw distance, which is very low. Larger details, such as trees and rocks, don't seem too affected, but the small foliage on your path is painted in right before your eyes, and once you notice it, you can't go back. Last in this section is the soundtrack. Firewatch keeps in theme and opts for a less is more approach. The game gives itself plenty of room to breathe and frequently leaves you alone with the wind and your footsteps. When music does visit, it is unobtrusive and serves to elevate the environment. Firewatch is very committed to its art style. It doesn't push its art direction to the levels of Spiritfarer, Cuphead or Enter the Gungeon, and so can't get the perfect score of 5. And is kept from a 4 by the graphical issues we mentioned, as they can pull you out of the experience. In the end, Firewatch lands itself a 3 in art direction, but know that this is a high 3. The game is so close to that 4, but is just barely held back by its own limits.
Can you handle that?
This is the backbone of Firewatch. The narrative here achieves a lot with a small set of tools. The intro of the game is a major exposition dump, but it keeps the player engaged and opens strong by having you simply choose some dialogue options. The game is designed around this idea of isolation, and by opening in this way, the player is given a great insight into Henry's life and what led him here, but is kept out of that intimate experience. This is all spliced in with your hike to the tower to keep everything moving at a steady pace. Once you get to Two Forks Lookout, the game becomes an interactive radio drama, and it's great. The narrative is carried by the chemistry between Henry and Delilah. Dialogue options allow you to be as open or closed off to Delilah as you please, and both roles are performed beautifully by Rich Summer and Cissy Jones respectively. If these two didn't have the insane chemistry that they do, the narrative would fall apart. Every conversation they have feels authentic, and there's a great mix of banter and more narrative-centric dialogue. You will also meet some other people in the woods, and even talk to some. These conversations carry the same great flow. The narrative as a whole is very reactive. Something will happen and you will have to respond. You always feel like you're on the back foot and struggling with your job, and everything ties together thematically. Finally, there's that ending. We don't do spoilers in our reviews, but we can offer some insight here. Personally, the ending stuck the landing for me. I thought it was a fantastic conclusion thematically and subverted my expectations in a great way. My partner, the editor of these reviews, disagrees. She was let down by the ending and thought that it didn't relate to Henry's struggles and lacked closure. I would personally score Firewatch a 5 in the narrative department, but all of this hinges on the ending. If it sticks with you and you liked the narrative beforehand, you will agree with me. In the end, we are giving Firewatch a 4 in the narrative department, as there is lots of debate about the conclusion. And whilst the voice performances and narrative pace is fantastic, it can all be soured if you get to the end and it doesn't click with you. Firewatch is a complete experience with some technical issues that we discussed earlier. There is no DLC here, just the intended experience. The game even allows you to free roam after you beat the story, and has a wonderful extra mode where you play the game with developer commentary. You also get 4 save slots to mess about with. Settings are very bare bones. You have your regular audio sliders and toggles for subtitles. There are no subtitle options, but the standard subtitles are well sized and easy to read. You can turn off head bob if that's not your thing, and there are options to turn off the HUD for a more realistic experience. There's also a brightness slider. There are no options to remap controls on a button-by-button level. You can invert the Y-axis and swap your analog stick functions for left-handed play, but that is it. This is extremely lacking, even compared to other indies. Firewatch is a full experience with a couple of fun extras, but a lack of options holds it back from going truly above and beyond. These extras are substantial though, and merit the game a 4 out of 5 in the specs department. Firewatch is a comfortable 6-hour experience, and that has both benefits and drawbacks. At no point does the game feel like it's wasting your time, as the narrative and conversations serve to keep you invested. The game is divided up into sections, and so can be played episodically if you prefer. It's also very friendly on hard drives, being a tiny 3GB install. The crux here is that ending. You can get to the end of Firewatch with a great 6-hour experience, or you can spend those 6 hours only to have the last one make you feel like you've wasted all of your time. That is massive. This is a single experience through and through, and whilst I commend the developers for committing to that, if the story doesn't land with you in the end, it might feel like a disrespect to your time. With all of this in mind, we're giving this section a 3 out of 5. It really could go either way, depending on your opinions of the narrative. Personally, I'd go with a 4, as the gameplay was wearing thin for me towards the end. But as these reviews are a more general criticism, we deemed a 3 more fitting. Firewatch is a very interesting game. It is a fantastic narrative bundled in with a simple yet effective art style. This is a game where if it hits the right chords with you, it could be the best game you play all year. But there are so many possible fault lines that Firewatch could stumble at. The ending is infamously controversial, and it could be the crux of your enjoyment of the game as a whole. Firewatch is worth your time if you are after an introspective narrative with some important life lessons. But if you're looking for something with a little more fire in its belly, you may be better looking elsewhere.